Hey everybody, welcome to Simply Nell's Tiny Studio. I am so glad that you were able to come and visit with me today. What am I working on in the tiny studio this week? A lot of things, child. I done started projects, I finished projects. A lot has been going on here in the tiny studio. But today I'm going to be working on a crochet afghan that I started here in the tiny studio. So that's what I'll be working on today. I wanted to tell you or give you an update on those beautiful crochet tiles that I made for my grandmother. Well, she finally received them as well as the comfy crochet slippers that I created I designed a pattern for, and I was able to send them to her in Detroit, and she was just so excited to see them. She laughed because she said, "Look," and she said, "I can't believe that Nell is, has met crochet something for me." And she really had a good time with those slippers. And she told me the other day that she put them on just to wear around the house, and she said they were just so comfortable. My mom and my dad loved their comfy slippers as well. They just thought it was the cutest thing. They thought it was the cutest thing. And then I also sent some hand towels to my grandmother as well, that I was able to crochet, and she was so excited. I was talking to her yesterday, and she said she kept looking at them, and she said they're so soft. I don't want to use them, but she used one the other day, and she said they're so soft, and she was like, I can't believe it. Nell made this for me. I was like, yes, I did. Because see, my grandmother is a designer, a fashion designer, and she had a boutique in the city of Detroit for many years, and that's what that was her thing, designing clothes. My grandmother has designed many of my wardrobes since I was, a baby, and my mom as well. And I was never a sewer. I never learned to sew. I should say I learned to sew the basics. I took a sewing class in middle school, but I never really learned to sew on the level that my mother and my grandmother sew. But I am a fashionista. I am a true fashionista. I love clothes. But I just never picked up that part of, you know, the designing aspects of fashion. But I also picked up other things. I picked up, jewelry design, because I'm a jewelry designer. And I also, my grandmother taught me how to crochet. And look at me today. I am a crochet designer. So to hear my grandmother and my aunt, my grandmother and my mom, they're just tickled pink, and they're giggling. And my mother said to me, Tracy, I didn't know you were that artistic. You are very creative. And I'm like, I didn't realize that I was um this artistic. I'm a writer, so I knew that part of myself. But there's something about getting older, and you start feeling, I don't want to get too deep into, some things, but it's just something about feeling free, or feeling this type of freedom to be able to express yourself in different mediums. And for so long, those mediums were suppressed, and I didn't express myself in those manners because I just didn't. That's a whole different conversation. And you know what? You can check that conversation out on my podcast, The Spiritual Musings of a Brown Girl, that streams on Spotify, it streams on Apple, it streams on Anchor FM, it streams on iHeartRadio. So you can check me out over there, and I talk a lot about this freedom that I am experiencing, that's allowed me to really fully, or begin to become fully immersed in, my artistry and being an artist. So, you know, if you really want to know, go over there to the Spiritual Musings of a Brown Girl, and you'll hear me going to death about it. But I was just so excited that my grandmother and that my mom and dad, that they really really love the finished crochet items that I was able to send to them. It's just a wonderful thing. So why don't you grab your work and I'll grab mine, and what we're going to talk about today may be a mixture of a little Married to Medicine, episode 5, and maybe a little bit of Love and Marriage Huntsville gossip. What do you think about that? All right, I'm going to grab my work, and why don't you grab yours? And it doesn't matter if this is your first time hanging out here in the tiny studio. What we do is we crochet, we knit, we craft or whatever, and I sit back and I yak for maybe 30 minutes to an hour, and it's just, entertainment, but something that it's just content, the kind of content that I look for when I'm sitting down crocheting or crafting. I look for content where I can listen to someone's voice, I can listen to them talk, and I can interact with them and complete whatever task I am working on, or, being fully, stimulated in that way while I'm also focused on my project. So that's the thing. That's something that was it Toni Morrison that said this? If there you can't find a book on a subject that you would like to read, write the book. So I decided, hey, why don't I just create the content that I would like to see? Why not? All right, so go ahead, grab your work. I'm going to grab mine, and I'll be back in two and two. All right. I have my makeshift yarn bowl here that I'm going to put right here. I already have my crochet hook, and I have my scissors. So let's get started. I watched episode 4 of um Married to Medicine. To me, episodes 4 and episodes 5 weren't really as interesting. Wasn't interesting to me. And the reason why I say that is because in episode 4 of Married to Medicine, the girls are preparing to go on a cash trip to Las Vegas, um, with Dr. Jackie and Dr. Simone hosting. And with episode 4, we dealt more with the aftermath of the Halloween party, and how Dr. Eugene and Dr. Karen have conflict. And this was very interesting because I believe this conflict between the husbands, yeah, I think this is going to be the season where the husband's conflict may overshadow the women's conflict, because Dr. Karen and Anila arrived to the Halloween party. They came dressed as movers, and they were the movers to Dr. Eugene and what's Eugene's wife name? Toya. They were the movers, pretending to be, making fun, poking fun at Dr. Eugene and Toya, because, their shtick for these past 9 seasons is always moving. Always moving, always having some type of financial issue, which, like I said before, look, that's all of us. all of us find ourselves in a position where we're going through tough times, and we're moving from place to place to place, especially you know when I first moved here, my family and I first moved here to Florida, and then we moved here in what, 2005, and then you know a couple of years after that, that's when we had the housing crisis and the recession, and all of that stuff was happening. So I understand the moving. I'm not one to judge on that, but I mean, come on. When a person decides to build their dream house and you're only there for maybe 2 years, and this dream house was supposed to be your forever house, well, then of course you're going to be the fodder of a lot of conversation. So I can understand why Dr. Eugene felt some kind of way about his situation being made fun of by another man and another doctor. I can understand that. But there are some behind the scenes things going on with that situation, because from what Dr. Heavenly said on her YouTube channel, she was saying that Dr. Eugene had sent Anila a DM, and in that DM, he was telling them to not trust Dr. Heavenly, and saying Dr. Heavenly was not your friend. So, once again, there's Eugene put himself in a situation where he is the one that kind of started this ball to rolling. And he's going to have to take responsibility for that. I wonder if he does. But the way I see it is that had he not been in Anila's uh, DMs talking about how so and so is not your friend, maybe Dr. Karen and Anila wouldn't have showed up to the Halloween party dressed as movers. Cause, effect. Cause, effect. Right? Right. So, episode 5, though, dealt with the ladies in Vegas. And I really don't do a review per se because, listen, I don't really remember much of what happened that day. That particular episode, because number one, it's been a few days, and number two, I don't sit down and write things out, and because it's not that deep for me. And then number three, the episode was kind of boring. It was. And episode 4 was kind of boring too. Episode 5 was kind of boring. And the reason why I said it was boring, because the only thing that really happened that I remember that stood out in my mind was the argument that the ladies had at brunch in Vegas. I'm supposing that Dr. Heavenly was, you know, she was probably getting tired of Dr. Contessa, with that funky attitude that she's had. I think something's wrong with Dr. Contessa. I mean, and I don't want to say that it's something mentally wrong with her, but I do want to say it's something wrong with Dr. Contessa. And what I mean by that is, I think that she is immature, is what I'm saying. I think she is immature, and I think her husband, Dr. Scott, uses her maturity against her because he's older than she is. I don't know by how much, and she's kind of young acting. She try to act like she's older, but she's not as old as the other ladies, and she acts like it. He's able to manipulate her and gaslight her into thinking that someone else is responsible for their situation. I can, and what I don't understand is why the ladies are acting, why they feel as if, why they don't want Dr. Heavenly to review her own show. I know that Candy has said that some of the ladies are upset with her because of her YouTube channel, because she does the speak on it, and she said that some of the ladies are upset with her because of the speak on it. But why? I mean, Candy has given you opportunities to come on the show to speak on it or speak on your situation, but you haven't showed up. So, she gets to speak on it and we get to listen. I mean, I don't understand. I think it's just jealousy. I think that the ladies, are upset with Heavenly and Candy because of how well their YouTube channels are doing, especially when they sit back and, you know, speak on the episode because that's what we want. I mean, didn't Bravo come up with a format like that as well? Where the cast gets to review the episode and give their thoughts about it. I don't understand what the problem is. Is the problem the fact that Candy and Dr. Heavenly get money from their YouTube channel that they don't have to split with the other ladies? I have no idea. All I know is that, people are acting kind of funny about the YouTube channels. But that's neither here nor there. um, Dr. Contessa has an issue with Dr. Heavenly for I don't know what reason. I don't know if maybe she felt that when Dr. Heavenly did reviews of the episode and she figured prominently in it, perhaps she felt that Dr. Heavenly shouldn't have commented on or just ignore any scenes that she and her husband were in, which is really hard because Dr. Scott and Dr. Contessa, the scenes that they were in on the show last season or for the past few seasons were very interesting. How could you ignore an episode that is perhaps 75% Dr. Contessa and Dr. Scott? I don't know. Now, I will say this though. Should Was it right for Dr. Heavenly to make the comment that she did to a super chat? And the question was, do you think Dr. Contessa is being abused? And because so many people have a distorted viewpoint of what abuse is, people think abuse is when you get punched in the eye, or punched in the lips, or punched in the nose, or being thrown into a wall. People think that's abuse. But abuse comes in different forms. You know, the abuse can be physical, where somebody's punching you in the eye. Abuse can be verbal, where someone is cussing you out all the time. Okay, verbal abuse also can not only be in the form of where someone is angry or saying angry, hateful things to you, but verbal abuse can also be a situation where it's more passive aggressive. That's abuse. um Abuse can come in the form of emotional abuse, where somebody is playing on your feelings all the time. And this happens in relationships, especially marriages. You have somebody that's playing on your emotions. And we have seen Dr. Scott do that. That's abuse. That's not fun. It's not all fun and games. It's abuse. Okay? Those are the different forms of abuse. So when Dr. Heavenly said, yeah, I feel that Dr. Scott is abusing Contessa, well, that's what she meant. We all know that. But because many people take the word abuse and only believe it's like a physical thing, then maybe Dr. Scott felt that, hey, when she said, yes, I believe she's being abused, even though Dr. Heavenly said, I believe she's being abused or verbally and emotionally, and she's being manipulated and gaslighted, which is also a form of abuse. Maybe Dr. Scott felt like, well, hey, people are coming up to me thinking I was beating on my wife, or you're giving the perception that I'm beating my wife and that I'm a violent person, which is not the case. However, as far as I know, allegedly, However, as I said before, abuse is many things. And I think that we as a society, even though we live in a time where there's, great strides in technology and where information can come, or information is right at the in the palm of our hands, at the tips of our fingers, a lot of people still are not knowledgeable about what abuse is. So I'm guessing that that's part of the issue with Dr. Scott. And I don't think this situation I don't think Contessa really cared that much about what Dr. Heavenly was saying, because I don't believe that Dr. Heavenly was saying anything to us, Joe Public, that she wasn't already saying to Contessa at all. But what I think is, and I'm going to hop off of this, what I think is that Dr. Scott had an issue with it. And his issue, he made it an issue to Dr. Contessa. And that's why this is a storyline this particular season, because it's a twofold reason. The first reason is that Dr. Scott is pissed with Dr. Heavenly for talking about his marriage and the way that she did on YouTube, and he made it Contessa's problem, and then he manipulated Contessa into making her believe that they wouldn't have the problems that they have if it wasn't for her friend Heavenly. That's what I think. So I think Dr. Heavenly got tired of the way Contessa was treating her um, at the brunch and before that day, their first day in Vegas. And I think that's why Dr. Heavenly and Dr. Contessa blew up, because, you know, Dr. Contessa's like, oh, you don't feel any remorse? You don't feel any shame? You don't feel like you did anything wrong? And Dr. Heavenly is like, look, I wasn't the person that was abusing you in your marriage. Your husband was doing that. You upset with me because of what happened in your relationship. I didn't have anything to do with that. My YouTube channel didn't have anything to do with that. You told Joe Public what your marital situation was, and all I did was just discuss the episode with Joe Public, and they had their own views. So there was a big argument. It looked like Dr. Contessa was trying to, tussle with Dr. Heavenly, and just a bunch of junk. Listen, I like to see the ladies when they're confrontational, but I don't like it when the ladies decide that they want to get physical, because I feel that they are doctors. They are, you know, it has so much more going for them than trying to jump up and hit somebody, in my opinion. I'm not trying to say everybody got to act like Dr. Jackie either. That's not what I'm trying to say. I'm just trying to say I do expect more from them. Maybe I shouldn't, but I do. But I do. I expect them to behave in a certain manner, but I just feel like already that Contessa is a little young acting. And I'm trying to think, the youngest one on the show is Quad. So for Quad to be acting more mature than Contessa is very interesting to me. But I really don't remember anything else that happened. I know they're supposed to be en route to a strip club, and you know what? I fell asleep. I don't know. Did they end up at the strip club? I don't know what happened after that. Maybe that's why I don't know. Maybe there's something else that happened, but that's all I remember. And I don't remember what the husbands were up to. Oh yeah, I do. I remember Kieran trying to fix breakfast for his children. I remember that. And let me see. I remember Dr. Eugene doing some things with his sons. I remember that. I don't remember anything else. Yo, it was Sunday night, Um, the day before that was my mom-in-law's memorial service, so my mind has just been somewhere else these past few weeks. Um, outside of Married to Medicine, there was this thing going around. Well, if you watch Married, Love and Marriage Huntsville, then you probably already know what I'm getting ready to talk about if you are a fan of that show. Ariane Curry, who was, well, she is the mother of Martell Holt's son, and she was his mistress for about, I want to say, 5 years. Recently, she's been acting out on social media, and the reason why she's been acting out is because Martell has obviously moved on with his life. He has moved on with his life and moved on to Sheree Whitfield over at the Real Housewives of Atlanta. They're bike riding, exercising, and all the other stuff that those pictures on social media show them doing. And so, of course, Ariane Curry feels some kind of way, you know, as she should. She was hoping that you know she was hoping that she and Martell were gonna just ride off into the sunset together, but rarely does that work for the other woman. I'm not saying that it doesn't happen, because it sometimes it does work out in that way, where a man has an affair on his wife, and you know he gets a divorce, or his marriage ends, and then he moves on to a life with his mistress. Sometimes that happens. Sometimes it works out in that way. But let me just be honest with you. Many times it doesn't. And so the young lady was feeling some kind of way when those pictures came out of Martell and Sheree. And so she decided to hop on social media a few times. But this last time she hopped on, she said, let me well, I'm paraphrase it. She was like, let me give you guys, some young women or whatever, some advice. Don't fool with married men, and definitely don't have a baby with them. So, she said it like we didn't know that. She said it like, this is a lesson that she's just now learning, and she's saying it as if she's brand new and had never heard of the concept of not sleeping with a married man, or a man that's not yours. That's how she was, that's how it sounds to me and to a lot of people. Here's the thing, sis, we already knew that. We were trying to tell you that. You were the fool that was sitting there listening to Martell. You were the one who was getting pregnant with a married man's children, believing in his dreams. That was you. We all told you. We all warned you. We all let you know that what was going on with you and Martell wasn't going to last. We already knew that you looked like a clown to him. We knew that. We already knew that. We knew that you were a clown in Martell's circus. He wasn't, I don't know what the conversations between this young lady and Martell were, but I have a pretty good idea. It's always about how the wife is not doing something, how the wife sucks, that how you, the mistress, are the only person that understands him, how you're so much better and far superior than the wife that he constantly goes back home to, and then went ahead and got pregnant. You know, those are the things that married men do. My wife doesn't understand me. My wife doesn't love me. My wife sucks as a wife. My wife doesn't clean the house. My wife doesn't take care of the kids. My wife this, my wife doesn't do that. My wife doesn't satisfy me sexually. My wife doesn't jump through hula hoops in the bedroom. All of that stuff. That's what married men say, and they say it. Why? Why do married men say that? They say that to justify them getting with you. That's why. And all the comments on social media addressing this Ariane Curry young lady, that's what the women were saying. You're a fool. But now she comes and makes a statement. Oh, guess what? I just want to give some advice to everyone. Don't sleep with married men and have babies with them. Sis, we already know that. You're late to the party. We know that. When she was on Tasha K, and Tasha K asked her, well, do you feel as if you should apologize to Melody? Maybe you should apologize to Melody. Here's your chance. The young lady didn't want to. She didn't want to apologize to Melody because she felt she was in the right. Because she was believing and listening to everything Martell was telling her, right? Yes. So now that Martell has moved on to what she says, an old lady Sheree, I did think that was funny. Though she said when she called a Sheree an old lady, an elderly lady is what she called her. I thought that was funny. But yes, now that Martell has moved on, regardless of how old Sheree may be, he's moved on because that's what men do. You were just entertainment and filler for the main event. And because you gave up all the cookies, you get left with crumbs. Right? Right. You get to raise his baby. That's what you get. You get to raise his child while he gets to gallivant between Alabama and Atlanta and New York, because he was in New York with Sheree while she was filming the Real Housewives of Atlanta reunion. He gets to gallivant and have a really good time, and you get to sit on social media and in Huntsville giving out unsolicited advice about something that your mother should have hipped you to years ago when she first found out that you was fooling around with this married man. As soon as your mother realized that you was fooling around with married men, she should have told you right off the bat, you need to leave him alone. Just watch yourself. But, unfortunately, I believe last year her mom was on the internet defending her daughter's actions. Or just defending her daughter against comments people were making about her being the other woman. But, as a mom, you feel bad that your daughter's going through all of this, but, she made the choice. For 5 years. And this baby that she has right now, that was not her first pregnancy. I forgot how many pregnancies she said she had. She got pregnant for this man more than once. And look where he is today. So she's supposed to be giving us some type of cautionary story. Girl, If a man is unavailable, he is unavailable. And you learn something about being a mistress that we all already knew. The mistress always finishes last. The mistress always finishes last. Of course, there are rare situations where a married man leaves his wife and decides to start a life with his mistress. Yes, those are rare occasions, but the majority of folks, you know, a married man will exit his marriage and bypass and run right on past the mistress to somebody else. That's real talk. So I don't know. It's hard for me to say I don't feel sorry for her. I think she's what, 31, 32 years old. I mean, so she wasted basically most of her 20s on a married man, and now she has a kid with him, and now she still has to co-parent with this guy that obviously she has feelings for, that she's in love with, and she's going to have to deal with it. But this is one of those consequences that happens in life that, you know, the only person that you can blame for your situation is you. That's the only person that you can really blame is yourself, because, life is made of choices, right? And sometimes we choose poorly, and we have to take or accept the prize behind the door we chose. We have to accept it. Listen, I've been there. So I don't say that as somebody trying to be judgmental or, haughty or, without feeling, because I've been there. I've been the young sister who has been in a relationship with a married man. I didn't have a child with him, but I was involved with a married man. And it is what it is. When I found out that he was married, I dropped him. Because, first of all, when you start a relationship off of lies, that's an issue. So now I can't trust you. I can't trust anything that you say. And then you want to make the excuse of, well, well, my wife, she sucks. She didn't do this, that, or the other. I don't care. I don't care what your wife can and cannot do. Why would I care about that? The fact of the matter is, you're married. Free yourself of your marriage legally, and then maybe we can talk. And then, when the wife called me, yes, Lord Jesus, the wife called me on the phone. And I was on the phone with her for about 2 hours. And she told me what was going on in the marriage, what was happening. She told me more things than I ever wanted to know. But I'm glad she did, because that informed me of who I was dealing with. So I had to make the ultimate decision on what I wanted to do with that information. And what I chose to do was I chose to leave the relationship. Even though I cared about this man, I loved this man. But no, mm-mm, no. Can't be in a relationship with a married man. And here's the thing about being in those type of relationships. Being in a relationship with someone that is married. The consequences, the heartache, the emotional distress that comes from such a relationship is not something that I would wish on anybody. And what goes around really does come around. So you'll find yourself in a situation where you're gallivanting with somebody else's man or somebody else's woman and think nothing about it. And the next thing you know, you'll find yourself in a relationship where, guess what? You're being cheated on. You're being lied to. You're being exploited. Not to say that it's right or that it's fair, but that's just how the universe works. What you put out there, you get it back. You can't plant a garden. You can't plant a garden of corn, and when you see when you see onions coming up, you can't be mad about it, can you? I mean, what are you gonna do? Somewhere in the seeding process, you went wrong. You were supposed to be planting corn, but you planted onions instead. So guess what you're going to get? You're going to get onions, not corn, because that's not what you planted. And it goes in the reverse too. You can get out here and start planting, and you're thinking that you're planting corn, but you're not planting corn. What comes up? Onions. Onions come up. You may say to yourself, how is it that onions came up here and not the corn or other way around? You know what I'm talking about. What am I talking about? What I'm talking about is that you can't go around doing wrong and doing dirt and not think it's just out there and not going to touch you one day, because it is. It is. Even if you become a person that you learn from your mistake and you acknowledge that you're wrong, guess what? You are going to pay for that. You're going to pay some kind of way. You're going to pay on the back end. That's just how life is. So the best thing for you to do is, when Mr. Rico Suave come your way and he's talking real good and slick to you, and you suspect that he may be married, or you suspect that he may not be available to you, what should you do? You do your research, and after you've done your research and you find out that he is truly unavailable, tell him to kick bricks and you move on. Don't do this thing that I see a lot of people doing. Well, I love him. I'm caught up now. I don't know what to do. I'm caught up. I love him. He loves me. Oh, wait a minute. Now we have a baby. We're going to be a family. He told me we're going to be a family together. We're going to have a house together. We're going to do this. We're going to do that. Right. No, you're not. No, you're not. And I'm not trying to say that this doesn't happen for some. For some people, it does turn out that way. But listen, Nine times out of ten, it doesn't. As Martell Holt has showed us. So those are things you need to think about. And I'm not just talking about women, young women coming up. I'm talking about us mature sisters as well, because we can find ourselves in situations and situationships that are not too cool. We can find ourselves in an affair with a married man, building castles in the sky, thinking that one day it's going to be you and that. Thinking that, oh, his wife messed up now. She should have kept her house clean. She should have cooked him dinner all the time. She should have got up at 3 a.m. and made him a sandwich when he asked for it. Because that's how you keep your man. If he wakes you up at 3 a.m. and says, yo, I feel like a turkey club sandwich. Make me a turkey club sandwich. You're supposed to get up out the bed, put your robe on, and waddle on down to the kitchen and make that sandwich. And give it to him. And because you didn't do that, well, that's why I got him. Because I'll be glad to do it. I'm the cleanup lady. Yep. Yep, the cleanup lady. She really does clean up. But look at the heartache that she gets on the back end. Look at the heartbreak. Look at the anguish. Look at the tears. Look at the emotional trauma that she gets on the back end. And then let's say you the mistress. Let's say you the mistress actually win the husband. What if actually he gets his divorce and he marries you, the mistress? You've won, right? You won. What did you really win? You won yourself a cheater. You won yourself heartbreak. You've run yourself a lifetime of distrust. You've won yourself a lifetime of side eyes. You've won yourself a lifetime of wondering all the time. Where is that fool? He said he was going to be home from work at such and such a time, and he's not here. You've won yourself anguish. You've won yourself hours and hours of, going out to dinner with this man, and his eye is over there, and you're right there. And you're wondering, is he trying to connect with that lady, or the waitress, or that lady? Is he having an affair on me right now? Because he is capable of it, right? Who is that he texting on the phone? Let me sneak into his phone to read his text messages and read his DMs. And why is that person over there liking his post? Why did that woman double click that post on social media? When you're the mistress and you win, so to speak, you won a whole lot. And what you won, I wouldn't want that as a prize. So the moral to this story is, if at all possible, Stay away from unavailable men, unavailable women. If they got a ring on it, pass up on it. If they got a tan line, pass up on it. If they talking that yippity yang about they separated, if they don't live in separate houses, keep on moving. Because I'm trying to tell you, you will be saving yourself from all kinds of heartache, headaches, and tears. Because when you get involved with someone who is not available to you, that's what happens. And now sis got to raise this man's child. And you see what he's doing over there to his ex-wife with those kids. And he's suing Melody right now for full custody, taking her through the ringer. Girl, now you have a baby with him? You see how he doing his ex-wife? Get ready, because he got something in that trick bag for you too. Let him get custody of those kids. Let him get custody of the kids he had with his wife. Let him get full custody. And you still on the internet whining and crying and complaining about your situation with him. He's going to file for full custody of your baby. You see what type of fool you got yourself caught up in? You see what type of arrangement of do you understand what type of circumstances that you can arrange for yourself when you get caught up with married men and you think it's cute? This is what happens. As my mother liked to say, you wind up in a trick bag that you can't find your way out of. All right now. It is 53 minutes past the hour. I've been talking for a long time. So I'm basically finished. I'm going to start a new row in a second. It's something about granny squares that is so comforting that I enjoy, and especially granny square Afghans. I'm almost finished with the Afghan that I was adding flowers to. That's a gift for a friend of mine. I'm almost finished with them. Finished with it. I had to add crochet flowers to it because I had a mishap. But it's looking very nice and I'm really excited about it. I'm really excited to show you. So I'll do that very soon. So look, I'm starting a whole new row, and I cannot reiterate this enough that I turn my work every 2 rows when I'm working on granny square Afghans. And the reason why I turn my work like that is because you have to, because if you don't, what happens is your granny square becomes something wonky. It doesn't look like a square. That doesn't look like a square. So you have to change, you have to flip your work or turn your work. So after I complete this second row of brown, then I will be moving on to, well, I'll be flipping my work so that my afghan or my growing afghan remains a square. All right then, so join me next time for Crocheting with Nell, and maybe I'll have something else cool to talk about. Who knows? Maybe I'll talk some more about Married to Medicine or whatever is happening, whatever's going on in the news that I think that would be cool to talk about and that you can listen to me rattle on about. We'll see. Maybe I'll talk about the books that I'm reading. Right now, I'm reading The Gift of Family by Mary Monroe. It's a pretty good book. I started reading Mary Monroe again. I loved her. She is the author of God Don't Like Ugly. And I got a chance to interview her on my radio show some years ago. And I really love her books, and I love the way she tells a story. And I love the characters because the characters are so, you know, just your average person. And it doesn't matter what era she's writing in, the characters are always very relatable. Maybe that's what I'll do. Maybe the next time I jump on here to talk to you, we'll talk about what I'm reading now and we'll get into it. How about that? All right, then. Well, I hope that today's Crocheting with Nell, you were able to get some things completed. So as I said, I'm working on this afghan here, and I was working on adding the brown row that you see here. And so now I've completed the first brown row, and now I am moving on. I am on the second, well, I've begun the second row of brown. And then after I finish this, I'm thinking about adding a layer, another row or two rows of this Karen Simply Soft blue, because it's kind of featured in this afghan already. So it'll be time for me to add another two rows of this blue. But we'll see. Thank you so much for hanging out with me. And I hope that you subscribe to Simply Nell's Tiny Studio. If you haven't, feel free to do so that you will be notified or invited to hang out with me here in the Tiny Studio. Thanks so much, and I hope you have a great day. See you next time.